The 2026 housing market in Richmond, Virginia is probably going to look a little bit different than you think it is, and we'll cover that today. What is going on, party people? My name is Chris Elliott, local realtor in the greater Richmond area since 2013. Over the last 12, 13 years now, I've personally sold over 600 homes. In this video, what we're going to do is what we do always. We're going to break down the national housing headlines, what you need to know. We're going to compare that to our local Central Virginia market. And if you stay to the very end, I'm going to give you 3 practical tips that we are giving to our seller and our buyer clients right now. Let's jump into it. All right, so as far as national housing news, let's start with mortgage rates. We started 2025 at roughly 7% interest rates, and we ended 2025 right above 6%. So we dropped about a full point in the year of 2025, which is really good for buyers. Also very good for a lot of sellers or would-be sellers that kind of are feeling that lock-in effect of having a low mortgage rate and not wanting to trade that in, even though they desperately want to move. At the time of this recording, the par 30-year interest rate is 6.04%. We had dipped to 5.99 for about a day. The real estate industry exploded, was, shouting Jubilee, and then it popped over the 6% the next day. So we'll see where it goes from here. Experts currently predict that rates will remain relatively flat for 2026. So if you've been holding your breath for low rates, you might want to go ahead and exhale and start breathing, because it doesn't appear, at least at this moment from the professionals that study this, that we're going to be dipping much below that in the year of 2026. Let's talk about prices. National price growth expectations in 2026 are roughly 1% nationally. That's slightly below the 50-year historic average of approximately 3 to 4%, that if you study real estate trends going back decades, typically if you average it all out, we generally experience 3 to 4% appreciation in a given year. As you can see from the graphic, there are varying opinions on how much appreciation that we are going to see, but 2 things I think are worth noting. All but one forecaster is calling for appreciation, meaning home prices will go up. If you went to public school like myself, I know you needed that definition. The one negative Nelly of the bunch, the Mortgage Bankers Association is calling for 0.3% depreciation. So they think on a national scale, they are forecasting we're going to see home prices go down 0.3% in 2026. So once again, if you average out all the major forecasters, we're expected to see modest home price appreciation. So I know your Uncle Larry is a part-time real estate economist when he's not studying conspiracy theories, and I'm sure he is telling you that the real estate market is going to crash in 2026. Uncle Larry may be right, but these professional organizations with staffed economists are once again predicting modest home price growth in 2026. Now let's talk about affordability. That was absolutely the buzzword in 2025. And if you followed the political elections, I'm sorry for you, but one thing you will have noticed is every single politician, no matter what side of the aisle they sat on, was talking about affordability. And if you don't know how politics works in this country, politicians have consultants. They figure out what are the hot button issues for voters. They talk about them. They talk about solving them. They promise to solve them. They get in office, and maybe they solve them, maybe they don't, but they know what's on the minds of the US public. All right, so when it comes to affordability, let's talk about what affordability actually means. Affordability when it comes to housing is a combination of home prices, mortgage rates, and wages. Essentially, home prices and mortgage rates comprise your monthly payment, and your wages comprise your monthly income. So it's basically monthly payment versus monthly income. Affordability is predicted to improve modestly in 2026. Wage growth finally outpaced home price growth in 2025, is expected to do so again in 2026. To summarize that, prices and mortgage rates are expected to stay relatively flat, and with wages growing, that's where affordability is expected to improve modestly in 2026. This is great news for prospective home buyers. The median mortgage payment is expected to dip below the 30% affordability threshold on a median home priced home for the first time since 2022. If you study real estate, basically anytime the median mortgage payment goes above 30%, the median income in this country, we kind of start sounding off the alarm bells that housing has become unaffordable. And this really matters, especially for first-time home buyers. All right, let's talk about inventory, the number of homes on the market. Inventory is growing nationally. It's up about 10% year over year from 2024. We're basically back to 2017 to 2019 levels of inventory, which is much more stable markets. Still a hot market, still a moving market, but just not the COVID craziness that we saw, not the chaos that we saw in 2021, 2022. Essentially, buyers have more options in today's market nationally, which is a good thing, in my humble opinion. So bottom line, national real estate market, we're steadier, we're not explosive. It's a reset year, not a rebound year. Now the part you actually tuned in for, what's happening in our backyard in Suffolk, Virginia. All right, let's talk about home price appreciation. So we finished 2025 with 2.5% year-over-year price growth. As far as sales activity, closed sales slowed at the end of the year, which is normal seasonal behavior, right? Nothing out of the ordinary. Pending sales are starting to stabilize, which usually tells us that spring demand is loading. I can tell you, from working with buyers kind of in the trenches in the field, we are starting to see multiple offers. We're starting to see where buyers are starting to miss out to other buyers on the same property. So things are definitely starting to heat up in our local market. I can tell you that anecdotally just from the clients that we're working with. Inventory, more homes for sale than last year, so there's more homes that are on the market, which is a great thing for buyers. We're still not flooded. There's still overall a shortage of inventory, but sellers no longer have the monopoly power, kind of all the leverage on their side that they did during the COVID years. As far as days on market, how long properties are taking to sell, homes are taking a little bit longer to sell than they were during the COVID years, but keep in mind, median days on market is still about 2 weeks. So in the grand scheme of things, homes are still moving very, very quickly. Translation, pricing, condition matter again. So putting the right price on your home when you go to sell it, and having a good home to sell, meaning like it's been staged, it's been cleaned up, you've made the necessary improvements. Those things absolutely matter again. Whereas during the COVID years, sellers were able to get away with a lot, from overpricing and just, not fixing up their properties before they put them on the market. Let's talk about list price to sales price. So how much of their asking price sellers are actually getting? We're still at 100%. So on average, on median in Central Virginia, home sellers are getting 100% of their asking price. I will submit to you though, that means that desirable homes that are well priced, a lot of times are getting bid up over the asking price, whereas homes that are maybe overpriced or, are subpar condition are selling slightly below that 100%. And last but not least, month supply of inventory, which essentially means, we talk about it every single month, but 6 months supply of inventory is considered a neutral market. Anything below that is considered a seller's market. So at 1.1 month supply of inventory, we are very much still in a seller's market overall. So local takeaway, we're actually still in a hotter market than the majority of the country right now. All right, so I applaud you if you've stayed to this point. Now I'm going to give you the practical tips that we're currently giving to both our seller as well as our buyer clients. So for my sellers or my prospective sellers, price with strategy, not with ego, which is sometimes hard to do. So the market will tell you if your price is off and it'll tell you fast. Once again, the median days on market is 14 days. So if you've been on the market, say 30 days and you're not sold yet, either you've got the wrong agent working for you, your home is in subpar condition, or it's simply overpriced. We're seeing that if a seller is going to reduce their price, they should probably make that price range around day 21. Waiting any longer than that, and you're just going to be left chasing the market, which is not a fun position to be in as a seller. Secondly, we've already kind of hinted at it. Condition matters again. How your property looks and feels when a buyer walks through it absolutely matters again. Buyers are not waiving anything anymore. So if your property is in visible need of repairs, that is going to cost you when you go to sell it. Paint, presentation, and pre-inspections matter again. Doing all the things. This is no longer an as-is market like it was during COVID. So if you have plans to sell in 2026, highly recommend reach out to us, get an idea what, if anything, would be recommended that you do to your property. Of course, the decision to do it or not do it ultimately lies with you, but would highly recommend getting that input from a qualified real estate professional. And last but not least, early spring is where sellers historically cash in. So I've already kind of mentioned it. We're seeing where buyers are out there looking for inventory, and a lot of these homes are getting into competitive bids right now because there's simply nothing on the market. Historically, what I've seen in our market, a lot of sellers will wait until April and May because that they feel like, that's conventional wisdom as far as when is the best time to list. Between right now and I would say the end of March is historically the best time for sellers because buyers are out looking and the sellers have not caught up yet, and those sellers tend to do well. All right, for my buyers, number one, you have a little bit more leverage, underline, double underline, under a little bit. So we're in a slightly better market where you've got a little bit more inventory to choose from. You've got a little bit more negotiation power. You've got a little bit more ability to negotiate repairs when we get to that point in the contract. Realize in the grand scheme of things, we're still in a very hot seller's market, but it's just not as stupid hot as it was during the COVID crunch. Secondly, waiting usually costs you. So if you're somebody that's waiting for prices to crash, if you're waiting for rates to drop, once again, none of the qualified experts are really predicting that. They're both saying that, rates are going to stay relatively flat this year, prices are going to stay relatively flat this year. So keep in mind, as you're waiting, not only you're continuing to pay rent, i.e. paying somebody else's mortgage, but prices are ticking up a little bit. So even if you buy the same home this time next year, chances are it's going to be 1 to 2% more expensive. And then last but not least, be ready when the right one hits. So I shared with you, the median percentage of asking price that sellers are getting is 100%. That means the really, the cream puffs, which we've talked about before, the really nice properties that are priced well, those things are selling quickly. They're selling, for multiple bids. So if you're somebody that wants to go after a property that's in a nice area, in a nice condition, realize it is going to sell quickly and you're going to have to be aggressive to jump on it. Well, guys, that was your February 2026 housing market update. Thanks for tuning in. If we can be of service to you in your buying or selling journey this year in 2026, feel free to reach out, put a comment below, send a direct message, send a smoke signal. We look forward to serving you.